Hello everyone. Welcome to the Ranting Shop. It's me, Melissa. This is the moment we all have been waiting for. This is the reunion of season 4, right? And we're gonna get right into things because there's no point in even wasting any time. So, Courtney was there and Shiloh wasn't, so I did make an error and say that I didn't see Courtney, but Courtney was very much there in her blue silk dress. Uncle Tommy, as we all know, wasn't the one hosting this particular episode because he had or tested positively for C19. So Tanika Ray filled in for him. Now, a lot of people are not familiar with Tanika Ray, but I grew up with watching her on Access Hollywood. Her voice is very much ingrained in my brain because she does a lot of hosting for Access Hollywood. So she is not new to this at all. And I think she did a really good job asking questions and not letting anything pass by. I liked her for that. And another thing I like about Tanika as opposed to Tommy is Tanika allowed people to say what they wanted to say. She allowed the outburst, like she allowed Aisha to say what she needed to say. She allowed Sabrina to say what she needed to say. And I appreciate that because you know what? I don't think Tommy would have done the same. I feel like Tommy would have kind of cut it short. And so I appreciate that. Now, they started off with Sean and his short stint on the show. And I just noticed that Sabrina saw pink flags with Sean and immediately got rid of him but kept Walter around with the many flags that she kept pointing out from him. So that just proves that the flags were not the issue. The issue was the level of attraction and the level of connectivity. And she was just more connected to Walter, so she was more willing to accept his red flags as opposed to Sean's red flags. Now, Sean's experience was soured by the friend's date with Sabrina and it ruined his experience. And he spoke about that in his interview with Crystal XO, where he mentioned that after that situation with Sabrina's friends, he kind of closed himself off. And so that is why Tissia recounted that she never even really got any more dates with Sean because Sean didn't call her, didn't reach out to her. So it led me to believe that he completely shut himself down, and that grilling from their friends really affected him. Now, I don't know what these producers told her friends, but they went all the way in on him to the point where she had to apologize. And she apologized at that moment and she also apologized on the show. But at this point, we are all very clear that producers definitely prepped the friends and maybe they told them to really grill Sean, and that's what they did to the detriment of him and his experience. Now, Sydney and Phil. Now, normally I get into fashions, so I will get into the fashions as I discuss each individual, or I will do it at the end. I'm just gonna do it at the end. So Sydney and Phil. Sydney was attracted to the calm collective nature of Phil, but I really think that she was attracted to the challenge of Phil because I'm pretty sure when Sydney came in on the scene, because of, I suppose, the way she looks, she expected everybody to be lining up to speak to her, and she did not get that from Phil. And it intrigued her, and she felt like, oh, a challenge. So let me see if I can get him because he's the hardest to get. So I think that is why she gravitated towards Phil. Phil's feelings were mutual for her, and the way she saw Frank, it wasn't like this thing where she's trying to figure out who to go to. I feel like it really was clear that Phil was the person she was gonna choose, even though she's saying she waited until last minute to decide. I don't believe that. I think she made up her mind about Phil, and Frank was always gonna be her friend. And I feel like that's what it was, and that's what we saw. She says, yes, I mentioned that already. I don't believe she made up her mind in the towards the ending. I think she made up her mind earlier on. Now, Frank was always her friend, as I said. Phil says dating with intention is what he's doing because they mentioned, will this lead to an engagement and something of that sort. Now, he mentions the point is to get married. Like he's dating not to find a girlfriend. He has no problems finding girlfriends, but someone that could potentially lead to marriage is what he wanted, and the intention is to be there. Now, do I think they will get there? No, but they look good, I guess. I guess because people were telling me that Sydney and Phil were indeed together, and I didn't believe them, and I still don't believe that they're necessarily together. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. And it's not even because they're not posting and being lovey-dovey on social media. It's just the vibe just seems a little bit, something is missing there to convince me. So, Camille. They're asking them because basically the narrative is Camille is clingy and possessive and she moves quickly. So they asked her, like, are you guys living together? And her expression was like, why would we be living together? So they're not living together. So she was blaming editing. Editing does what editing does, she says. They panned over to Sabrina's face. Sabrina was not enthused, and she's not owning that she was possessive, and she blames editing. That's Camille. She's not saying or agreeing to the narrative that she was possessive. Then they asked Sabrina, because I guess Sabrina was being very expressive, and she was facially, and they asked her like what she thinks and so on, and she was like, what they do is none of my business. If they don't pay my bills, if they don't pay my mortgage or my car notes, it has nothing to do with me. And I was like, you better tell her, All right. Now, Sabrina was on one in this reunion. Sabrina had a lot to say. Sabrina had a lot of pent-up feelings and emotions towards Zadia and Camille. Clearly. Aisha was like, because they talked about the aggressive comment and they were gonna like brush that under the rug, and Aisha was like, no, address the aggressive part because you were aggressive. And she says, keep it classy, meaning Camille was like, keep it classy, because Cornelius then already warned her that, oh, you're representing me. And if we watch the Ages and Stages podcast with Cornelius, he goes on there and he was like, I had to talk to Camille and tell her that she represents me, and how she's depicted is how people is going to depict me. And so in this reunion, we saw a glimpse of that, basically her holding back because he feels that's his representative. Okay, I guess, but Tyrone says his delivery could have been better, because remember he called Carrie aggressive, and he displayed or showed us how he should have handled the situation, and he should have essentially said the issue wasn't you, but I had a stronger connection with someone else. And I felt like that was really, really good, because that is essentially what we were trying to get him to understand. It wasn't necessarily her, but I feel like for him, he felt like he had to make her the problem so that he would feel justified in moving on from her. But that was not the case. Neither was it the approach. Nothing was wrong with her. It's just that you did not find a connection with her, or better yet, you found a better connection with somebody else. And that was just that. That's all Tyrone had to say. And that would have been good. So they hugged it out, and Carrie, of course, really appreciated it. He explains the issue with Shiloh and mentions, and he said that in other interviews, it wasn't necessarily that he just closed in on Shiloh, but he did close in on Shiloh, though. That's the thing. He did close in on Shiloh because Yes, he explained in the men's deliberation, he was just ranking the women as far as his ability to be with them in the long term, and he mentioned that Shiloh could be his wife. That's not the issue anybody is debating. The issue is that even when he was speaking to Sabrina at the pool, he had very much narrowed in on Shiloh. And that's what we wanted to discuss. Why did you feel so strongly about Shiloh so early on to the point where you wanted to narrow in on her? That is what we wanted to find out. But I don't think we really got an answer to that. He explained one aspect of it, which is the ranking thing, but he didn't explain narrowing in on Shiloh, because that is essentially what he did. Even to the point where Sabrina mentioned she had to tell him the process is not that way. Like, you have to date multiple people, not narrow in on one person, you know? So he didn't necessarily address that. What he's essentially saying is editing cut it down to where he says Shiloh could be his wife and made it seem like he narrowed in on Shiloh, but he did not necessarily narrow in on Shiloh. That's what he's basically saying. Now, Cornelius. Now, this whole reunion, Cornelius's face just pissed me off. And furthermore, what was he wearing? But we're gonna get into the fashions later. I don't want to mix up fashions and then what they had to say. Now, Cornelius mentions it doesn't take him all day to figure out what he wants. The chasing was reciprocated, but we only saw Camille chasing him. Now, when they addressed Courtney mentioned Camille didn't stop her from doing anything, because she likes to chase men. So regardless of how Camille felt, she was gonna go after what she wanted. She also agrees that Camille was indeed aggressive. Now, my thing about it is Camille loves to blame editing. So if it was all editors, why are your castmates who were there with you saying that it was true and that you were indeed aggressive? Something is off. It's either you're not taking accountability or the castmates are delusional. And of course, I'm very much likely to believe that Camille is just you not wanting to take accountability, period. And you being in an aggressive, defensive stance because you feel like everybody is coming at you. And they were coming at you, but just own up to what you were doing, as opposed to defending it and saying you didn't do things. Because the videos and the words that's coming out from your mouth is saying a contrary thing. Aisha is letting it all out about Camille. She was essentially what the show depicted of her. That's what Aisha is saying. Like, what you saw on TV, that's who Camille was. Okay, aggressive and possessive. She mentions not being able to even talk to Cornelius in the beginning. And she said, antics or not, it was mean. Sabrina was saying some sick stuff, though, about how corny Cornelius looks like he has regrets. He says he knew what he wanted. They spoke about faith and everything. They felt the tension. The women felt the tension. And I believe the tension was there. Camille is asking Aisha if she received an apology, as if that's supposed to make Aisha not speak on her experience. Like, an apology is an apology, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna be quiet when asked to address what I experienced on the show. And I feel like that's the issue. Camille said a lot of things impulsively, right? She vented, she had her social media rants and everything impulsively. And she felt like damage control was simply just gonna be apologizing, and that apology was gonna make them be quiet or make them recount their experience or make them talk less about their experience. But it didn't do that. I mean, the reunion is the time for everybody to lay out all their issues. And why wouldn't they? Why would an apology from you stop that? The point of the matter is you made them feel how they felt. And they felt the need to address that, period. So Sabrina said, they said the other girls were not brown enough for the brown girl squad, and they said Sabrina was too light, Aisha was not brown enough, and so essentially they were trying to say the brown girl squad kind of segregated the women. Whether it intentionally did it or unintentionally did it, it did it. Zadia was like, so what you're not gonna do is say we try to separate ourselves. But you guys did try to separate yourselves. That's the thing. You did separate yourselves. And you continue to kind of justify the narrative of separating yourselves from other people, because Sabrina had just had it. And she was like, she thinks Zadia acts innocent, but she was instigating a lot of things too. The Brown Girl Squad, like Sabrina had it with these women, particularly Zadia. The whole time, Zadia had this really scary look on her face. Like, she was just smiling for no reason. Like, she just had this smile on her face. And I'm like, what is she smiling for? It was kind of really scary and gave me serial killer vibes. Like, it was so scary the way she smiled so much for no apparent reason. But they spoke more about the Brown Girl Squad, and Zadia was saying it was formulated because they all took a picture together, and I suppose that picture made them realize that they were all brown skinned, I guess. I don't know, but I don't really care. The host asked if Sabrina can be a part of Brown Girl Squad. And Zadia was like, no, didn't you hear Sabrina cuss me out? So that just proves that it was a segregated group. Like, you guys did separate yourselves. It was exclusive to just you, Camille, and Mumen. And that created segregation. Like, that's just obvious. Now, Sabrina said she's mean, referring to Zadia, and nasty, and has not treated her nicely during the process. She also mentioned Mumen also was mean and terrible to her, but she didn't really address Mumen on that reunion show. Or she did address Mumen, but we didn't see it. Because remember, Mumen is supposed to be the sweetheart. So how is it, or how would it look if she wasn't that? Because that's how her character was portrayed on the show. And your character has to align with who they depicted you on the show as. So Zadia walks off with the fake smile plastered on her face, because I guess she felt like Sabrina was coming at her too strongly, and she wasn't gonna stay there and take it. Now, Cornelius is like, thought it was my segment. Well, not anymore, Cornelius. Like, I literally cannot stand Cornelius's face, you guys. I cannot stand him. He was trying to explain away the thing with Camille saying she'd F them up, and I just was not buying it at all. I was not buying it at all. He was trying to say, oh, she didn't say that, but if she said that, it was in the wrong context, but she didn't say that, I didn't hear her say that. Like, just shut up. Just shut up. Okay, just shut up. So, Frank and Mumen. I'm gonna go in on Frank, you guys. I am going to go in on Frank, because he disgusted me this entire segment, particularly the segment, of course, with him and Mumen. So let's get into it. So Frank tells her to be honest, and I think that she was gonna be honest. I think the issue is we have a problem with you being honest, Frank. Because that's the issue this entire season. We feel like you were not being honest. We feel like you were putting up a representative and you were not being your true self. You were not letting us know your true intentions. So you worry about you being honest. Don't worry about Mumen being honest, first of all. So Mumen saying it has not been good. After they filmed that ending, nothing happened. They didn't go anywhere. They didn't go on any dates. Didn't experience anything together. He tries to dispute the fact that nothing happened and said that they did go out on group dates and she did sleep over at his house. But the point of the matter is it never went where she wanted it to go. It never went into dating and getting to know each other. It just stopped at that show. He blames it on depression and needing to take time for himself. If that is the case, then okay, but at least communicate that to her. Together, nothing happened. Now Frank talking about his he passionately cared about her. You didn't care about her. Don't lie. And Courtney is backstage saying, Frank, just be honest. Be honest. That's all we ever asked of Frank, is for him to just be honest. Ignore the camera and be honest. Be true to yourself. He didn't care about Moment. He says essentially, I think. So I said essentially he was done playing a role and went back to his regular self. Now, after the reunion or during the reunion, is when he thinks they were moving too fast. What the hell is he talking about? You had no problem about the pace that you guys were going on the show, but now they were going too fast. And it's giving me he's looking for excuses at this point. It's disgusting. He did a Calfani basically. Because if you guys recall, Calfani and Adriana chose each other. Everything was nice and beautiful. Even though I didn't like Adriana because I felt like how she did Rashid was disgusting. But everything was supposed to be sweet. And then the minute they get on the reunion, we learned that we felt like Calfani made up an excuse that his ex reached out to him and he decided to be with her instead. We all felt like that was an excuse, and we still think that was an excuse, basically to get him off the hook because he really wasn't feeling Adriana like that. That is the same thing Frank is doing. But essentially, he didn't create this elaborate story. He just made excuses and now was finding fault in the pace of the relationship. Stop the cap. Stop the cap. That was not the issue. The issue was you were never ready. Now he realizes they were not compatible, and it's not even that he gave himself a chance to try it out and to see if it would work or not. He didn't even have the courtesy of giving it a go, you know. Like the moment the show stopped filming and they stopped being videotaped and recorded, the facade just completely fell off. He was never attracted to Moment. He was never interested in being with Moment. And that's what it was. Now you're realizing you guys were not compatible. Stop the lies. Several women said he wasn't ready. Several women told Moment, this man is not ready. And instead of listening to these women, Moment chose to trust him instead. And that's very similar to what Liz did when it came to Jason. Instead of at least listening to what other people's experiences were with the person that you're interested in, you choose to dismiss it as, oh, they're hating, or they don't know him, or he's different with me, and they all suffered because of that. What I will say is, to women, to whoever, you should actually be really grateful that someone is telling you the experience that they had with the person that you're interested in, especially during the dating process. Remember, you're dating to gain knowledge about somebody, to see if you guys are compatible in the real world. So take all the information you can get to formulate who that person really is, because between just you two, of course he's gonna present his best self. Of course he will. But when people are telling you, oh, he's not what he seems, he did this to me, he did that to me, take that. yes, you could take it with a grain of salt, but have it in the back of your mind so that you do not just have this unrealistic, perfect view of this person, because nobody is perfect. And Liz failed to do that about Jason. And then couple months after, she's talking about she dodged bullets. Now you experienced that with Frank, and then you now are posting on your page that you dodged bullets. So essentially, what I'm learning and what everybody should be learning about these experiences is gather as much data, as much knowledge, as much information from people as possible when it comes to the person that you're interested in dating or is dating, because then that would formulate a more holistic view of that person. Because left up to your perspective alone, you're gonna feel like this person is perfect, but we all know that no one is perfect. So the best thing for you to do is just accept that that person has flaws, Naim. Accept that that person is rude, Naim, aggressive, Naim, disrespectful, Naim, and take that for what it is, as opposed to saying, oh, that person wasn't like that with me, and dismissing everybody else's experience. That would save you in the long run. Learn this. This is so important. Listen to people's experiences with who you're dating, because that person may not be as perfect as you think they are. It just might save you heartache. Look at how Mumen is so distraught and she's so upset about this. And I'm upset for her. I'm mad for her. But if she had done it in a way where she, instead of closing people off, she at least listened to what other people had to say and made her decision more of a general thing as opposed to an isolated thing, she wouldn't have been here crying and upset with Frank, because then she would have gotten a more clear version of who he was. We all knew that Frank wasn't about anything. We all knew that. Every one of us knew except for Mumen, because Mumen chose to be naive. Mumen chose to be gullible. She chose that. Now, he was initiating holding Mumen's hand even at the reunion, even knowing that he wasn't ish prior to that reunion taping. He didn't reach out to her. They didn't go out on any dates. There was literally nothing. But the moment the camera comes back on, you want to hold her hands. That just proves to me that when the lights went on, it was action time for him. It was him trying to perpetuate this representation. And it was really disgusting to see. I hated that he was being fake and phony and putting on for cameras. And what really hurt me more for Mumen was she wasn't in on the facade and the fakery. She wasn't in on it. She didn't know. She thought she was getting an authentic person. She thought she was going to be riding off into the sunset. But it didn't end up that way for her. And it's because she chose not to see it. We always need to take accountability for our parts in our heartaches. We do. It's not always the other person. What did you allow? Think about what you allowed, so that you don't end up making the same mistakes again. So I said, you lied to that woman and presented this picture perfect ending when you know you were full of BS, talking about he's been hurt before. So has all of us. We've all been hurt before, but we don't go into things thinking, oh, I'm gonna deceive and then pull back and then use that as an excuse. That is disgusting, Frank. I'm so disgusted with him. So disgusted with him. Then they spoke about the shrinking argument. So we're going to just move away from that and talk about the shrinking argument they had at the table. So we found extra footage of Camille speaking with the other women. I believe they were in a kitchen, and she was threatening them, talking about, I'm not gonna invite you to my wedding if you put Cornelius at the bottom. So you were doing that. Don't act like you didn't do that. You were doing that. You did that. You did it at the kitchen and you did it at the table, period. And Sydney had something to say on her Instagram platform. She posted, basically, I'm going to show you guys the picture, essentially saying she said it. And she did say, I'll F y'all up. She said that. So she was threatening people who voted for Cornelius. She was. Now, Naeem comes in, another person that irritates me. One thing I will say about Naeem is he knows how to dress well. But when he opens his mouth, I'm so turned off by him. Naeem mentions, basically trying to say that the women were just jealous of Zadia because the men, 9 out of the 10 men, had put Zadia on their tops. But what does that have to do with anything? That has nothing to do with anything. So I said, is he implying that they were just jealous? Because that's what I'm getting from his argument. That's what he's trying to get ready to say. But I don't think that's what it was. And he's talking about, oh, people are thirsting for friends, not love. That has nothing to do with any of what Naeem was trying to say. And the fact that he continues to be blinded by his liking of Zadia is truly disgusting. And it truly speaks to the fact that he's just like Zadia in real life, or he likes her so much that he's willing to simp for her. And that's what it looked like to me. The whole process throughout watching this season, he's been in the comment section of various platforms defending Zadia. But at the end of the day, these castmates experienced what they experienced with her. And that's something that you cannot justify. That is something that you cannot just call jealousy, because that was their experiences with her. And you cannot dismiss it as them being jealous. Just dismiss it. Just say that you want to be blinded. Just be blinded by yourself. But don't say other people were just being jealous. That's dismissive and it's disgusting. Our people are thirsting for friends. Shut up. You're thirsting to be with Zadia right now. That's what you're doing. But Zadia doesn't want you. How about that, Naeem? Or Naeem? You're doing all this for nothing because Zadia doesn't want you. Zadia explains that Aisha had not locked in her connections, and that is why she said that Zadia was jealous of Camille having a connection. But Zadia, you also had not locked in your connections either. You had not locked in, your connections were not locked in. So for you to say that, it was very hypocritical because you were in the same boat as Aisha. And you ended up with non-person. You ended up with no one. And she ended up with Dante. So you should be embarrassed talking about she had not locked in and blah, blah, blah. Clearly, she locked in more so than you did. Because who did you end up with? Who did you end up with? Aisha explains what Camille says. She's saying she didn't say it. And they played back the footage. They played it over. And they're like, okay, so if you heard her say this, raise your hand. Most of the contestants say they heard her say it. Everybody said that except for Camille and Cornelius, and maybe Zadia will say she didn't say it. Everybody will say, all of her friends will say she didn't say it, but she did say it. Aisha explains, yeah, I just said that. Tisia felt like it was too much bickering and she stormed off. Started crying, saying her mom is sick and she felt like it was just too childish what was going on the show. And Aisha was like, if we're calling out actions is ghetto, then let it be ghetto. Because that's what a reunion is all about. It's all about calling out people's BS. And I agree. If you can't take it, I don't know what to tell you. The thing is just that Camille refuses to take accountability for her actions. And that's the issue, and that's the problem that we all had with her, to be honest with you. And Cornelius is by her side looking just as dumb, just as stupid as she is. And that's why we will always believe that Cornelius is a simp. Because from what we saw on that show, and even in the reunion, he looked like one. He looked pathetic, to be honest. He looked absolutely pathetic. Of course, Camille had a lot to say. Camille did have a lot to say on her platform. Let's see what she says and how she justifies the tip showing that she was lying. Let's see what she says. So Camille says, y'all know I can't just sit and be quiet on this. No, I did not say. All I know is if y'all put my man at the bottom, I will F y'all up. As we all can see. And that is why I adamantly said, no, I did not say that. Didn't nobody say all of that, child? What was said was, if y'all up, I'll F y'all up. But the context and who it was said to have been skewed for drama. At the reunion, clips are played while on stage to get an organic reaction from the cast. And that is exactly what happened. I was thrown off, honey. I actually didn't recall saying it until I ran back the sequence of events after the reunion. Cornelius didn't hear it, nor did Zadia, who was sitting next to me. Pause. Let's pause. It's funny how her friends or her affiliates are the ones who didn't hear her say it, but everybody else did. Isn't that weird? Why didn't she say, even Sabrina didn't hear me say that? She didn't say Sabrina because Sabrina is not her friend. Aisha is not her friend. Tisia, Liba, these people are not her close friends. So of course they're gonna hear her say it. But Cornel, it just happened to be that her friends are the ones that didn't hear her say it. Interesting. Continue. Anyone that knows about production mics know that they can pick up the sound of a needle dropping, so it wasn't said out loud. The pot was initially stirred by producers when my castmates was told to bring up voting us off the show since we found love. We were being written off the show. In that moment, I was like, wow, that's messed up. But what came out of my mouth was something totally different. And that was when the line was said. It was said based on what producers were attempting to do and was said to producers. Admittedly so, I have dropped the F-bomb a few times this season. I'm working on my potty mouth, but it's a no for me on this one. I saw what was being done behind the scenes. Producers forcing the drama by telling folks to bring up topics. The proof is in the footage. I know what I said and why I said it. Enjoy the reunion, everyone. Hashtag it is what it is. Hashtag it's all good. Exits stage left and still blessed, is what she said. Okay, so that is what Camille had to say. Essentially what she's saying is that she did say it, but it was in the wrong context. She said it to producers, not the castmates. So anyways, you guys, that's all I have to say on that. Oh, we have to speak about the fashion. And I think perhaps I'll do a separate video because this one is already so long. So see you guys next time where I'm going to be talking about the fashions and I'm going to be roasting some of these fashions because it was terrible. Frank, Cornelius, terrible. Okay, and see you next time. Like and subscribe and stay tuned for other reviews from the Ranting Shop. This was only part 1. Part 2 is next week. See ya. Bye-bye.